My name is Armando, Chairman FDC Central Parish and Secretary for Edare Kapara Central Division. Thank you.
We have brought in our friends from Kampala and from Nakawa and Central Division, specifically because we are going to address issues related to the eviction of vendors. Today's press conference is going to dwell on three major issues. One, addressing the state of the party and where we go after the election of 2026. The second matter that we shall be addressing is the so-called trade order, where common Ugandans have been adversely affected. And the third matter that we will be addressing today is what we in the FDC understand as the repugnant Protection of Sovereignty Bill now before Parliament. In doing this, I would like to declare that the election is over, but the struggle is not over. I would like to note that we previously made it clear that the results announced by the Electoral Commission, a body wholly appointed and answerable to Mr. Museveni, did not reflect the true will of the people of Uganda. I do not want to go through the details because our presidential flag bearer, the Right Honorable James Nathan Nandal Mafabi, published a statement after the elections outlining every detail of why we rejected the presidential elections, particularly. And you will recall that we had a press conference in Mbale. But let me make it clear, FDC did not accept, does not accept, and will not legitimize the declared outcomes of the January 2026 elections. An election conducted under an internet blackout amidst mass arrests of opposition supporters, with countrywide ballot stuffing documented in video, with obscene amounts of money spent buying voters, can never be referred to as an election. All that said and done, we as the FDC do not despair. We shall never retreat. We shall never surrender. Because FDC was not built for the easy seasons. We're built for exactly moments like this that we are going through. Because the people of Uganda deserve a party that stands firm when standing firm is hard. When you are standing on quicksand and you have got to keep standing. And that is what we are. Within the rigged process, some FDC members of Parliament fought and won seats against overwhelming odds. We have an MP-elect from Obongi, Arua City, Soroti City, Soroti District, Jinja, in Jinja, Kagoma County, Kitgum Municipality, 9 in number. These victories won against a system designed to produce only one outcome, a proof of the strength of the FDC brand and the trust our people have placed in us. We honor every elected FDC official and all our members who offered themselves to contest, from President, Member of Parliament, to the local councils, 5, 3, and sub-counties and parishes across the country. Moving forward, the FDC will undertake a number of activities, including the following. Number 1, induction of FDC members of Parliament and formulation of the FDC legislative policy agenda. Our newly elected members of Parliament will undergo a structured induction program, equipping them with the tools, knowledge, strategic orientation to represent the people of Uganda while holding to FDC values effective the 12th Parliament. Alongside this induction, we shall develop and publish the FDC legislative policy framework. This is a comprehensive document that will define our party's position on key issues, including bills, budget priorities, oversight functions, and constitutional matters. Parliament will be one of our battlefields. Our small number in the next Parliament notwithstanding. And so we would like to see that shining star of the FDC in the 12th Parliament from the 9 members of Parliament that we have posted to the 12th Parliament. Training of all elected FDC leaders across the country, and this will include LC5 councillors and leaders, LC3 chairpersons, and their councils. The FDC's mandate extends far beyond Parliament. We have elected leaders at district levels, sub-county and town council and municipalities, and as councillors in local governments across the country. Under the FDC Leadership Academy, we will roll out a nationwide training program for elected FDC local government leaders, covering governance and service delivery, legal rights and obligations of elected officials, budget, oversight and accountability, community mobilization, and representation of marginalized groups, including women, youth, and persons with disability. And again, enhancing their mobilization skills to ensure that they're able to propagate the gospel of the FDC. We are also going to engage in political party unity and outreach. And this is an important area. It's important now more than any other time before. Because I believe all political players in the opposition have now come to the realization that our 21 years of existence as FDC have been years fighting against the dictatorship. And it has not been a very easy call for us as the FDC. I know that everyone who has now attempted once, twice, or even more times tackling the regime, the junta in Kampala, now knows it calls for heavy lifting. I'm sure that is the perception that our friends in the Alliance for National Transformation have. It is the perception that our friends from the National Unity Platform have. Certainly, some of the parties that broke away from the FDC, the PFF, now know, as they have always known while they were still with us, that we won elections, not once, not twice, as the FDC, but we were not declared. And so FDC, believing that the liberation of Uganda from 4 decades of one-man rule cannot be the project of any single political organization. And we've said this several times before, that freeing of the people of Uganda, liberating this country, cannot be done single-handedly. Accordingly, we are initiating formal outreach to Uganda's opposition and democratic forces, including the People's Front for Freedom, PFF, Alliance for National Transformation, this, Uganda Federal Alliance, this, are parties that were created out of departure of some members from the FDC, the Uganda People's Congress, the Democratic Party, or whatever is left of it, the Justice Forum, JEMA, and the National Unity Platform. And as I said, we have all learned our lessons participating in the Museveni organized elections. And other parties and movements committed to democratic change. We seek to work out agreed methodologies of working together and forge the minimum common platform to push back the dictatorship and restore democratic governance to Uganda. And in addressing this particular matter, this is a clarion call to our friends out there. We either work together or we shall be buried in a mass grave. We know the intentions of the NRM to completely annihilate the opposition. And recently, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament has stated exactly that. That the opposition will be swallowed. And I want to address this to the Right Honorable Speaker. The opposition is too big to be swallowed. We may lose members to the NRM, some of them our leaders, like in the case of Sibambi, those are just but part of the trade we find ourselves in. We will lose members, definitely. But the soul of the opposition will continue living on so long as it is the belief of the citizens of Uganda that they are not being governed well. There's always going to be opposition to that regime that has mismanaged this country. We are going to reach out to all political prisoners, including Dr. Kizza Besigye. We shall continue to campaign for the release of all political prisoners in Uganda, including our founding president, Colonel retired Dr. Kizza Besigye, who has now been held in detention for more than 500 days in defiance of constitutional protection, Supreme Court rulings, and basic human decency. No Ugandan who has suffered for the cause of freedom will be abandoned by the FDC. The struggles of political prisoners is the FDC struggle. We are going to speak about those political prisoners. We will call for clemency from the regime, even if they are found to have faulted the law. This is done in the spirit of trying to reunite Uganda. Because how else shall we be a proud nation if we go after each other on the basis of our political persuasion? How else are we going to unite our people, including our supporters, if unfairness is meted on particular sections of the political class in this country? The FDC will also not spare any effort in mobilizing grassroots support. As you are aware, and we've always said this, the FDC's greatest asset has never been funding or anything else. It has always been the millions of ordinary Ugandans who believe in what we stand for. We will launch a structured nationwide branch outreach program, visiting FDC branches in every region of Uganda, north, east, west, central, or if you want to call it Buganda, to listen, to account, to re-energize, and plan together for the battles ahead. Don't ask me what our battles are. The battle ahead is to fight the dictatorship in this country. The battle ahead is to ensure that there is a restoration of the rule of law and there is good governance in this country. The battle ahead is to challenge those in power to ensure that they get rid of corruption. The battle ahead is to ensure that poverty that is endemic today is dealt with. We will continue to fight to ensure that democracy is restored in this country. The second point is what we refer to as the trade order enforcement. And therein, the halting by government of the evictions that we have seen across the country. The Forum for Democratic Change takes note of the government's decision to halt the enforcement of the trade order that led to the violent displacement of street vendors and demolition of their livelihoods across the country. I personally witnessed this while in my hometown of Kumi, where violent evictions took place. And this happened across the country. That the government suddenly woke up and said, get off the streets. During the 2026 elections, we warned Ugandans clearly and repeatedly about the anti-people policies of the NRM government. Regrettably, a number of citizens were carried away by monetary inducements, joining the junta in massive electoral malpractices that helped subvert the will of the Ugandan people. Today, those same citizens are among the hardest hit. That what the Kenyans call the mama mboga, those fellows who live from hand to mouth, who were duped in believing that voting the NRM would change their lives. I want to invite them to see what the NRM has done to them, even before the new government is sworn in. And so the citizens of Uganda have to brace for more difficult times, not only in that area, but also on land policy and other policies that are detrimental to their very survival. What makes this even more unconscionable is that most of these vendors put up their structures in full view of the authorities. Here in Kampala, people were welding those boxes to operate their businesses from. And KCCA was watching as they erected those boxes, those containers, even on road reserves. And now, after the damage has been done, after families have lost property, income, and dignity, the government has paused. This is not governance. This is recklessness dressed in the language of order. Recklessness that we warned Ugandans about. You can now dance to the music. Dance to the music and probably think twice in the next election. Because we've spoken for 21 years as a political organization, and sometimes we risk being misunderstood. Because of what government did, some lives have been lost, families have been scattered, there has been massive displacement of entire families, and generally an outcry in the population. Before the bulldozers moved and wheel loaders and all sorts of heavy equipment, before the kiosks were demolished, before ordinary Ugandans lost their only means of survival, we raised our voices and said clearly, you cannot chase away street vendors without first having a credible, dignified plan for where they will go. So we advise government to hold the implementation and come up with a plan of where these people would go to do their work from. But they didn't listen. As has always been the case, the NRM government has got blocked ears. Never listens to the population. They think they can play around with the population and come and buy them at every election to vote for them. The NRM government has perfected a dangerous pattern. Implement first, consult later, apologize never. Policies are rolled out with fanfare and force only for the human cost to expose what should have been obvious from the very beginning. These cities and municipalities and towns must benefit us all, both the poor and the rich. They should not belong to petty bourgeoisies. They should belong to all of us as citizens of this country. Street vending is not a crime. And for us, we stand on the side of these street vendors. Make no mistake about it, we shall fight with them. We'll stand on one side of the street vendors, while the government that are oppressors will stand on the other side. They may come with their guns, they may come with their heavy equipment, they will come with all sorts of arsenals, but we are not going to be bothered so long as we stand with the oppressed people of Uganda. Our demands are as follows. Number one, full accountability for all property destroyed during the enforcement exercise. And we are very, very strong about this. Second, immediate compensation or restoration for affected vendors. The government should not just come and say, okay, we are sorry about what happened, go back and carry out your business. It's not going to be business as usual. Number three, a transparent consultative process before any new trade order is enforced or put in place. Number four, KCCA and the other authorities, and we are really talking about KCCA particularly because the scale of eviction was highest here in the capital city. And that is expected because of the population of the capital city. Must account for its role in permitting these structures while collecting revenue from the vendors, because they even collected revenue. There are people who paid revenue to the authorities. And now the authorities are going after those people. Parliament must scrutinize this matter without further delay. The way they are rushing the sovereignty bill is the urgency with which the affected lives of the people should be addressed by the House, in any case before the new parliament is sworn in. 6, government should come up with a clear plan for vendors not to chase them off the streets and send them to empty and poorly planned markets where they can hardly make a sale. We've written about the planning in Kampala here, and many times I've even proposed to this dump government to develop satellite cities so as to decongest, the central business district. We are giving them free magazine, which they have refused to take. Tubawa magezi ya bwerere. but they won't listen to us. To all Ugandans, it's high time you stop falling for NRM lies. Every election season, they come to you humble, with handouts, begging for your vote. But the moment they announce themselves winners, before they are even sworn in, they turn around and harass the very people who gave them power. Article 1 of the Constitution says power lies in the hands of the people and shall be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. If the vendors, the policemen, the army teachers, all sorts of professionals came together and said the NRM should not govern us, that would happen. It would happen even before the next election. And we shall keep calling on them to knock the doors of the NRM to remind them that power belongs to the people. Now I will turn to the sovereignty bill, the protection, so it's called, of the sovereignty of Uganda. Now, as I address these, I want to note the fact that it's taken the NRM 40 years of existence to realize the necessity of having this kind of bill. On behalf of the Forum for Democratic Change, a party founded on the principle that sovereignty belongs to the people of Uganda, I want to register our total rejection of the protection of the Sovereignty Bill 2026, tabled in Parliament by the State Minister for Internal Affairs on the 15th of April, 2026. This bill, like other laws that the NRM has made in the recent past, is designed to do one thing: to silence, imprison, and destroy the Ugandans' ability to speak, assemble, challenge power, speak to power, and live in freedom. To the Ugandan mother in Masaka or Kotido, whose son sends money from London every month, under this bill, your son is a foreigner. You may need ministerial permission to receive money from him. The money you use to pay school fees, to buy medicine, to feed your family, to engage in development. I know some of you might think, that money is less than 400 million, but might want to build a simple house for your mother. Now, it's now subject to approval by a government that has never once put food on your table. To the nurse in Hoima, whose hospital is funded by a foreign NGO, that funding may be capped, shut down, or subjected to a minister's approval or even cabinet approval. The drugs you use, the equipment on which life depends, all of it hostage to one minister's signature. To you, the journalists in Kampala, under clause 13, if you publish information this government decides damages, open quote, damages the economic viability of Uganda, close quote, you face 20 years in prison. I see a lot of potential prisoners here. If you are 20 years, you will come when you are 40. If you are 30, you will be 50. You'll find your wife has been taken away by another man. Your wife has been taken away by, your husband has been taken away by another woman. And your children will remain destitute. So this is not a bill to clamp down on political opposition alone. There are many tenets that this bill extends towards. They can call any story economic sabotage. They can read it their own way. We have seen the way the law on the abuse of, what do they call this? What is it called? Yes. That act there, the way journalists are being, taken away. Just because of what they write. Most of it is the truth. The Computer Misuse Act. This is another one. In fact, it is a bigger monster than that one. So you can be jailed for reporting the truth. And yet I believe in your colleges and universities where you are trained to report accurately. Why should you be punished for doing your job well? To every opposition politician, civil society worker, trade unionist, and human rights defender, this bill is aimed directly at you. It is not an accident. It is a strategy. And so this fight has got to integrate everybody, including you guys. Do not say they came for the Jews, we are going to keep quiet because you are not a Jew. They came for the politician, you are going to be silent because it doesn't affect you. They came for the university lecturer or a researcher. It's not your business because it doesn't affect you. The day they come for you, there will be nobody to speak for you. Our legal team took time to read the bill and noted a number of issues that are in violation of Uganda's 1995 constitution. The most critical are the following. And I've taken trouble to read the bill from cover to cover, beginning with the interpretation clause. The object of the bill, I beg your pardon. Diaspora citizens classified as foreigners. Clause 1 defines over 1.5 million Ugandan citizens living abroad as a foreigner, a direct violation of Article 15 and 21 of the Constitution of Uganda. Criminalizing political opposition. Any FDC member who advocates against a government policy after receiving any form of foreign-linked support, and this goes for the other political parties, faces 20 years in prison. This makes opposition politics itself a criminal enterprise. Now, some political leaders sometimes feel insecure living in the country. and may want to seek refuge somewhere while doing their political work. You continuously live in that country, outside your own country. This bill brands you a foreigner. You are no longer part of Uganda, even if you were born here. The other aspect is the bill will strangle business and the economy. The Uganda shillings 400 million annual funding cap, that threshold, will capture foreign investment, bank loans, research grants, and diaspora remittances, triggering capital flight and economic collapse. The other day I was speaking to a friend of mine who lives and works in the United States of America. And he said, you know, how are we going to develop our country if this law is passed? Some of them are contemplating investing in other countries in the East African region, so that when they come back home, they can recoup their investments from Kenya or from Tanzania. So this is going to impose a knock on our economy. Silencing universities and researchers and research institutions. A Makerere University researcher, for example, or Barara University, or Gulu University, receiving a $150,000 US international grant, would commit a criminal offense. Now, we talked about the importance of research to our development. And knowing that the government puts in very, very little funding in research, in science and development. But the same very government is saying, you shall not receive such money. We are spelling doom to our universities and also silencing them. When research is deemed as something that makes people in power uncomfortable, those grants could easily be attacked. Economic sabotage, as is contained in Clause 13, publishing truthful information about government economic failures becomes, open quote, economic sabotage, close quote, punishable by 20 years imprisonment, a direct assault on press freedom and Article 29 of the Constitution. You know, this government publishes fake economic data. When you look at the glossy, shiny data that they want us to consume, and you look at the livelihood of Ugandans, there is no correlation between the two. And the moment you say, but wait a minute, I have conducted research, and the figures you are giving are fake, you have committed an offense. 20 years in Luzira or Kitalia or any other prison of their choice. I wish you luck. You may even die in prison. unlimited ministerial power. It's what this bill gives whoever is going to be minister, to throw their weight around. The Minister of Internal Affairs can declare any person, company, or organization a foreigner. Now, you from Butambala, you are told you're a foreigner. Which other country do you go to? Eh? Or Gomba, for that matter, in the case of Chauglanyi. Eh? And this will be by statutory instrument. The minister goes, he writes instrument, he will bring it to Parliament if he wishes. It's not mandatory. And their fate is sealed. With no criteria, no judicial oversight, and no opportunity for appeal. This is totally unconstitutional. Now, normally a law is written, a bill that would be passed into law, when there is written when there is a gap in the existing law, when there is a lacuna in the law. The question that begs is, in the case of this bill, is there a lacuna in the law? Are there gaps? Are there lapses in the existing law? For us as the FDC, we say Uganda already has laws regulating financial flows, political activity, national security, and civil society operations. And these laws include the following: the Anti-Money Laundering Act, which regulates suspicious transactions, illicit financial flows, and unlawful foreign funding, funding that is not understood. Government has this law in their hands. A friend of mine, again, I like to give examples, sent money to Uganda. Is busy building a small house. The amount of money sent to Israel was 60 million. Once the money dropped on the account of a relative, the authorities sensed it. And they began to ask questions. That money was sent back to the person who sent it to begin with. Meaning, under the law, there is a provision to deal with this very matter. The Political Parties and Organizations Act, which clearly provides for political party financing, accountability, and disclosure obligations. No money comes from outside the country into the FDC without us being compelled, not even within the country, to disclose that money and also to account for it. So what is this money you are looking for that may come to political parties, to political parties, that would interfere with the sovereignty of Uganda? Let them tell us. This is, again, another way to starve political organizations in the opposition of much needed funding, because government doesn't give us much money through an act of parliament. It doesn't even give us money for elections. I talk about this from my own experience. The election of 2021, no money, in fact, ever since multi-party political dispensation started, money deliberately given to political organizations for the purpose of running elections has never been registered. The Electoral Commission Act, which addresses electoral integrity and unlawful political interference. The Anti-Terrorism Act, which criminalizes support for activities that threaten national security and therefore sovereignty. The NGO Act 2016, which regulates registration, transparency, and operations of CSOs, civil society organizations. The Public Finance Act, which governs foreign funding to government institutions, and the Constitution itself, which already safeguards sovereignty, democratic participation, and institutional accountability. This bill creates no new value. Its value is zero. It duplicates existing provisions and manufactures a legal gap that does not exist. It's worthy noting also that government itself depends on foreign funding. There's a clear contradiction in this bill. While government seeks to criminalize and heavily restrict foreign funding for citizens, civil society, and political actors, the same government remains heavily dependent on foreign aid, grants, concessional loans, and donor financing for its own operations. Every national budget reflects this dependence. If foreign financing is genuinely a threat to the sovereignty of the country, then government must begin with itself. Uganda continues to rely on external financing amounting to approximately 5 to 6 trillion shillings annually across health, education, infrastructure, humanitarian support, agriculture, and public administration. If that foreign support does not come through, the economy loses a critical fiscal buffer, public service collapse, and government itself becomes unsustainable. We therefore demand the withdrawal of this bill immediately. No amendment can save it. It is actually completely useless. Its constitutional violations and structure are irreparable. We protest. We want to protect. We demand protection of diaspora remittances. You know that Ugandans abroad remit up to $25 billion annually. And this is part of our national lifeline, not a foreign threat. We also demand that hold genuine public consultations if the government has real concerns about foreign interference. It must consult widely with civil society organizations, the opposition, religious leaders. By the way, even these Balokole churches, I really want to mention, is getting support from outside. Even if they are supporters of Museveni, because some of them are declared supporters of the NRM government, are going to hurt by virtue of this law. So we are all, in the same boat, regardless of whether you are a politician in this country or a religious leader. The private sector and ordinary citizens before legislation is done. Number 4, we demand respect of the Constitution. Committee must conduct a full constitutional compliance review and reject this bill on those grounds. We call upon all Ugandans to reject the bill. I'm very happy that I have seen our leaders in Teso, I've seen our leaders in Acholi speaking out. Would like to encourage everybody to speak out, including you, media practitioners. Speak out against this bill. Some of you are speaking out already. If you wait until the law is passed, hold your peace. You will not have an opportunity if you want to stay out of jail. Uganda does not require this bill. We call on Ugandans to reject the provision of the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026 in its entirety. I would like to conclude by saying sovereignty belongs to the people of Uganda, not to cabinet, not to one minister, not to State House, not to this, nor to the president of this country. We shall defend that sovereignty with every legal and democratic means at our disposal. In fact, we cannot rule out the fact that even if it was passed, it would end up in court. And we are prepared to take a lead in this. Our way forward, as a matter of courtesy and also in fulfillment of our duty as a political organization in this country, the FDC whip, the Honorable Adeke Anna Ebaju, who is also Soroti District Woman Member of Parliament and Member of Parliament elect, and the party whip and our parliamentary caucus will today, they must be actually before the committee now as I speak. She's leading a team to meet the committee and to present our formal views and objection to the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Internal Affairs and the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee this morning. But I would like to say that we'll be circulating these views, which are contained in a document that is now before Parliament. It contains the details of our views about this particular bill, and we are going to fight on two fronts. In Parliament, fully now represented by our colleagues, but we are also going to the court of public opinion. I would like to call on the diaspora, the Ugandan diaspora, to speak with us on this. I believe they have got more liberty to speak wherever they are. Because what is happening in our country today is going to affect them adversely, maybe more than the citizens of this country that live here. I thank you very much for coming and for being part of this press conference. We shall now file, I'll now file questions. I'm glad I've been crystal clear.
No questions.
No need for any questions. Yes.
My name is Brett. I just want to understand, Honorable Kamure,
Sorry?
on the issue of you coming up with other opposition parties to join forces. Why is that coming out right now after the general election? Why didn't you do that before going to the polls? And maybe the second one, since you reject the election results as the FDC, what do you have in plan? Will you petition or you just leave it to pass?
It is too late to petition. The time for petitioning any election, including in parliamentary elections, has elapsed. And so we had made, the issue of petitions, electoral petitions for presidential elections, very clear many years ago when Dr. Kizza Besigye was still president of the FDC, that we will never subject ourselves on an election matter, presidential election particularly, to a Museveni-controlled judiciary. Never. It's going to be a total waste of time, and we don't intend to do that. So we want to go to court, the Museveni court. We are going to tackle the junta in the court of public opinion. And we are crafting plans to do exactly that. As far as coming together, I believe this is going to be the best time. After an election, after everybody has tasted the bitter taste of winning an election and not being declared, I think it is now time to sit down. And as I said, not accepting to be pushed into a mass grave. It is to do with our own political survival. I don't think NUP can now stand on a rostrum, on a platform, and say, there can be fairness in the next election in 2031. Because not once, twice now, they have performed decently. But who is going to swear in Kololo? Is it Kololo? Where is he going to swear in from? It's the same person who has been in power for 40 years. Maybe there were people who used to doubt the effort that we were putting in bringing change in this country. Some sections of political leaders in this country thought it was just a joking matter. Now this has gone around everybody. FDC and PFF, NUP, DP. And so really the purpose of this proposal is for us to sit down and ask ourselves, are elections actually going to bring change to this country? And for us to get to know from amongst our numbers who still have faith in our electoral system in this country. And then we can chart a way forward. If that very, very question is actually answered. Now, of course, at the same time, everywhere that we have gone in the previous elections and this particular election, there has been a call for opposition unity. Mwegateko, unite. It's what I was told in 2021. Why don't we work together? And so we hope that we could achieve a minimum agenda in fostering unity among political opposition in this country and those who believe the same as we do. That's how I intended to answer that question. Yes, there is another question here.
Yes, Engineer, thanks. Like like 2 to 3 months, FDC was not in the news. We'll be back. This is the worst election when it comes to MPs. 9 out of 33 in the 11th parliament. What could be the problem cause this low number?
This was a deliberate plan to target the opposition. This election here. Remember that Mr. Museveni and his system have had a long-standing view that we should not have an opposition in this country. And you can see what has happened everywhere. We have seen a decline in the performance of the National Unity Platform, both at parliamentary and presidential elections and even local government elections. FDC itself has declined drastically in those numbers. UPC has gained a little bit, I think, by 1. And the Democratic Party as well has declined. The election that we have just come out of wasn't an election. The victory of Mr. Museveni has just been forced down the throats of Ugandans, using military might, falsehood, whatever I've described here, excessive use of money or even obscene use of money, and using security operatives in determining who wins in this election. Even the 9 of ours are just lucky. They are really lucky. You should also know that this election is very critical, was very critical to Museveni's longevity. As we go towards determining the question of succession, the opposition should be seen at its weakest. And I dare to say, every day that passes, I begin to believe Museveni wants the country to revert to the monolithic movement kind of system. Make people disbelieve the need for us to have multi-party political dispensation in this country, and instead go back to what we used to belong to, a no-party state. Because he's unsure about the future. He's preparing for that. Everything that is happening today that happened in the election is actually, even this bill, is in preparation for the biggest question, the big question. That is going to come not more than 15 years from now, or not even 10. Because, you know, as human beings, we are not everlasting. We are mortal beings. And even if we aspire to live to the age of 120, one day we are going to go. There's no doubt about that. So I think all these are being designed, cast on that plan there of what happens after the departure of Museveni, whichever way he departs. Yes, any other question?
Yes, sir.
Bring it.
So how prepared is the FDC for the LC1 elections? Do you regarding these elections, and what do you think about government's reason of not having enough funding for these particular elections? And maybe lastly, how do you feel the slowness of these elections is affecting the political party?
The what?
The slowness of these LC1 elections, how is it affecting you?
Can you tell me when the LC1 elections will take place? From, way back as maybe 3-4 years, the much heralded elections have been spoken about. And each time they approach, the minister goes to Parliament to extend the life of the LC1s. I don't think the NRM is interested in LC1 elections. It's not. If it were interested, what you call lack of funds would have been dealt with. There would be money. Because governance issue is a priority area. Now you can see the kind of confusion that the NRM has caused to itself. In some of the parts, some of the villages in this country, there are people who are posturing as elected LCs, having gone through LC1s, having gone through the primary elections. And the potential conflict between those who are sitting and those who are waiting for an election because they were elected in the primaries of NRM. That kind of confusion surely should have been avoided. Should never subsist. So our readiness as far as election is concerned, we will always field candidates, even if we do not believe in the elections. And one may ask, why then do you participate in those elections? An opportunity for us to mobilize. You don't know how important having an LC1 in a village is to our grassroots mobilization. So whenever they happen, whether next year, 10 years from now, the FDs will participate in those elections. Unless there is a shift in the approach to our politics, as far as FDC is concerned. I think let's call it a day. Thank you again for coming. And let's all avoid prison by fighting this legislation and making sure that it does not see the light of day. Thank you very much. Wanji? Uluganda? Neda, bavunule. They will translate. Yes, baja kuvunula.
There is a statement here. Toina sente. Maiga, Morocco.